let me ask you about Nora, because you start with the setting. You've got kind of an idea, I assume, of what your plot's going to look at. So how did you come to decide that a 12-year-old girl is going to be the ideal protagonist for this story? And how did you come to discover Nora? Was it as you were writing? Did you come up with her first and then start writing?
In a way, I did. I did come up with her first when I well, the setting came into it for sure. You know, the Manila North Cemetery with the squatter community. I would say that that blog post about that girl Grace was the real push to creating the character. And so I did sort of I model Nora after what I thought Grace, or who I thought Grace was. And so that's where I started out. And basically just coming from that point of view, hold on, my computer did that thing again where it went to sleep, the screen. I don't know why it keeps doing that. So I need to wiggle my mouse a little every now and then. So yeah, I think she was the inspiration for Nora. And the decision to make her 12 years old, I think, came naturally because of that blog post about that little girl, Grace, because I think Grace was about 11 or 12 years old when the missionary wrote that blog post about her. So I think it just fell naturally into that, you know, because she was the inspiration for it and she was that age. I decided that Nora would also be that age.
There is a lot of talk throughout the book about money. There's depictions of the wealthier people versus the who we're spending our largest amount of time with, which is the poorer people, and a lot of talk about debts. There's, without spoiling, a major character with a gambling issue. What is it that you're hoping that your readers will take away from that discussion of economics within the book? Is there something specific that you want to say, or is it just that happens to be in the story?
Well, I don't know that there was. I don't think I was. I didn't write it to send any particular message necessarily. But what I wanted was to present the realities of life there, especially for these poor folks. Also to sort of expose people to, you know, what the dynamics of classism, you know, in the Philippines too, you know, to help people understand maybe why Filipinos are so driven, you know, especially if you meet Filipinos here in the States, especially the ones who have immigrated directly from the Philippines. Or from any other country, you find that these immigrants are so driven to do well, to make money, to better their lives, but mostly the purpose of writing about that was just to present the realities of life there, what I experienced and what my characters experience. To just give everyone a taste of that, because I don't think there, as far as I know, there aren't very many stories. There might be a few now, but before, a few years ago, there weren't any stories at all about life in the Philippines. No one knew what it was like to live there and the sort of the problems that people face from day to day, or what the sort of prejudices they experience because of their lack of money. You know, or because they have a lot of money. You know, there is such a distinction in the Philippines. Like I always consider myself, like I said, you know, sort of solidly middle class, and there is a fair amount of people who would be considered middle class in the Philippines, and this would be the main workforce, who at least have their own homes, who can afford to put their kids through school and things like that. But there are so many people who live so well below the poverty line. And then you have all these people that live who are so very rich. You don't really see very many of those people in this story. You see mostly the people who live along that middle class line. And even then, there are distinct social prejudices. You know, for people who are poor, as in not to have any spoilers, but like with the family that Nora and her mother live with, her father's family, they have very, they experience very specific prejudices there while living there because of who her mother was, right? To them, and not to spoil that part, but and so I just wanted to illustrate that and to show that, without it being, how do you say it? Without making it, I don't know what word to describe that. It's just, I just wanted to show what is life there. I think that was my main purpose in writing this story, just to illustrate what it's like. Does that make any sense? I feel like I'm rambling.
Yeah, that makes 100% complete sense. And by the way, you absolutely accomplished that mission. By the time I finished Everlasting Nora, I had a much better understanding of what the life would be of a 12-year-old girl in the Philippines in this particular set of circumstances than I did before. I don't know that I'm the ideal reader that you had in mind when you wrote it, but by golly, you reached me. I found it quite brilliant.
Yeah, it's funny because one of the things that, like I said, what pushed me to write this was because there is, in the arena of American publishing and in the books that are published here in the United States, there aren't very many books that have Filipino characters or that have stories set in the Philippines. And that was my main goal, was to do that, was to show this life, to be published here, to share this culture with and I would say, yes, you are one of the ideal readers, because you don't, you could have friends who are Filipinos, and yet maybe not really understand some elements of the dynamics of their family life or why they do certain things. I think most Americans, when it comes to Filipinos, they're mostly familiar with the food that we eat, or the fact that most women, Filipino American women, are nurses, which is not exactly true, but it seems that way, So it just to get, sort of to break down those stereotypes, to show, what is true about Filipino culture. And also, I think one of the things, like thematically, community was a big theme in my book. And that's something that is a Filipino, I would say, I wanted to show that Filipino quality, or I say Filipino characteristic that is so distinctive in my culture. And it's called bayanihan. That's the Tagalog word for it. And bayanihan means community. It means helping each other out. And this is what, how Filipinos are, even here in the States. Just to illustrate that, there could be, like where I work in the hospital, there's another lab, and there's some Filipino women who work there and a couple of Filipino men, and they gather at lunchtime and they bring food for each other. They share, they do things like that. It's something that people in the Philippines do as well. So yeah, so that was one of the main reasons why I wanted to.
I had looking for a passage. I believe you described them, the squatters in the cemetery, as ants who protect each other in order to survive.
Mm-hmm.
About the same.
Yeah. It's just like a community of ants, and I was thinking about that when I wrote the book, and when that line came up, and I thought that was true, because the ants work towards helping their community. The more that they do, the stronger their community. And I sort of what happens in Nora, sort of I base that on my own life when I was growing up there, when I was going to high school. We lived in a compound that belonged to my grandfather, and so there were 4 houses there. We lived in my grandfather's house because he had already passed away, but my mom's 2 sisters lived there and her brother. And so we did sort of the same thing right in there. My aunt helped my mom with the laundry. Back then we didn't have, and most people still don't have, washing machines. And so my aunt helped my mom with the laundry, and in turn my mom would cook food and she would give her some of the food. So it was kind of that give and take sort of dynamic that happened within my own family, that I based the community that Nora lived in. You know, that's what I thought of when I was writing about the community, because it's very true. You know, that's what people do over there. You know, they help each other out. They, you know, they could trade services or items for something. You know, if they didn't have money, you know, they would do that. They'll, you know, build something for you or clean for you, and then you could give them something in turn. Or if you needed something from them, you could do something, you know, perform a task for them, and then they would exchange it with something, you know, either in kind or another service. So that's what I based it on.
From the outside looking in, and I'm an introvert, so I never want people that much in my business. But it does sound like a very satisfying and happy way to live, to have people to fight for and to know there are people fighting for you on a daily basis.
Yes. Yeah, it was really a lot of fun. When I was growing up in that compound, it was just my mom. It was great for my mom because she had a lot of support as far as, you know, help to do particular tasks. Like I said, you know, whether it be shopping for groceries, going to market, helping somebody with the ironing, helping somebody with the cooking. So that was my mom's main thing, was cooking. So she did a lot of cooking for my aunts and my cousins and things like that. And the other aunt that lived there did the same thing. She did a lot of cooking. My mom was a bit nervous, the nervous type. She didn't like to go to the doctor. So my aunt did her a favor and took us to the doctor for her. So things like that. Yeah. So it was nice. It was a lot of fun. And plus it was great for my brother and my sister because I had a lot of cousins that lived there. And so they had ready playmates all the time. So it was just a fun, noisy little community. And that's sort of what I wanted to illustrate in this book as well. That kids, you know, no matter what their circumstances are, they can find joy in the simplest things in life. Just being able to play with other kids, to, you know, have fun, go out and buy, you know, little snacks or candies from the stores. Because in the Philippines, they have what we call sari-sari stores. And these are like little independent shops that pop up in neighborhoods. And you could buy anything from soda to ice, you know, like popsicles. You can buy candy. You can buy anything pretty much. They sell it there. And so it was a lot of fun for, you know, for little kids, especially my cousins and my brother and sister. They would play games all afternoon and then go out and buy food and bring it back and just have fun.